I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Thursday, January the 11th, where these cash feeders are sharply lower. I'm not kidding, especially in the southern plains. It's just been a perfect storm, and I'm not talking about the weather, but just everything lining up for the rug to be pulled out from under these feeder cattle. And you just better look at it straight up. If you own big calves or feeders, especially in the southern plains, and I mean below I-70, but everywhere they're sharply lower, but especially below I-70, they're worth a $50 bill a head to a $100 bill a head less than they were at Christmas time, and that's just where we're at. And a lot of it has to do with the board, but just the way the supply and everything lined up, and we'll talk about that more in a minute. But the board on Wednesday, February live cattle was down 80 cents to end the day at 116.87. April live cattle down 85 cents at 118.67, and it's below what our current cash market is now, and that it just doesn't bode well for ever getting our legs kind of back under this fat cattle market for a while here. We're just in a depressed state. The bears have taken over for sure. March feeder cattle down 52 cents at 142.22. January spot feeder cattle down $1.10. Now that's how bad it is. You look at March feeder cattle was down a little over 50 cents, but your spot January feeder cattle, and that thing's got to meet up here just pretty quick here, a little middle of the month, and it's been running at such a discount to what the cash market is, and still January feeders down $1.10 to end the day at 144.37. where your index levels are still setting up in the high 40s. But fat cattle trade, there was just a sprinkle more fat cattle trade happened mostly on a dress basis on Wednesday at 192, and that would have been steady with what your market was on Tuesday. And remember, you had that Monday trade, and that's how jacked up things are when you have Monday fed cattle trade and then continuing on Tuesday, but we still haven't had all the trade that we need. Tuesday we had 37,400 head in the 5-area feeding region. So your Monday and Tuesday total sitting at 68,600 head. We still need to trade another 20 or 30,000. Guys are not going to want to sell them lower, and your packers are not going to want to give probably not even steady money if that. But yeah, your fed cattle exchange sold some cattle on Wednesday morning, 4 pens in Kansas at 119. That would have been $1 lower than what your Tuesday trade was, and just still only sold 400 head, which doesn't amount to anything out of the 700 head that they had on offer. But box beef cutout values turned lower now. They've been real supportive through the last week or two as packers have been buying cattle cheaper, but choice boxes down 43 cents on Wednesday at 210.06, and selects down 46 cents at 203.23. Your slaughter's been plenty good up through Wednesday at 354,000, and hard to compare to last week's holiday week, but compared to the same week a year ago, that's 7,000 more than they had same week a year ago. But these cash feeders are just so much sharply lower. Your real-time index on Beef Market Central late on Wednesday sitting at 147.47. That's down $3.80 on a 7-day moving average, with a lot of volume and some big sales coming back after the holiday, and that is a severe, significant loss. And you compare that to what those cattle are, a lot of those cattle are going to finish at. It's like what people just woke up one day and realized that the June live cattle board is $8 off of what April was. It's been that way. There's been a big drop off from April to June. We've known that. And then on some of those lighter feeders moving on into August, it's sitting at 108.35. So, that coupled with the severely cold weather that you had, and still so dry everywhere. They did get some snow up in the high northern plains areas. They always get a little bit of snow, but they're still relatively dry. But a lot of the lower Midwest and the southern plains is severely dry. And I tell you what, you talk about down in Kansas and Oklahoma, southern Missouri, Texas, you get down in there, the wheat is completely played out. and then it got so bitterly cold that that wheat just pretty much crawls back into the ground. And I don't know, other than a big heavy snow sitting on that with some morning temperatures, I don't know what would bring it out of it, but they've got to pull the cattle off of that now. So you got cattle coming off of there, a lot of displaced cattle weighing in the sixes. Your market is so much lower now that a lot of guys are probably going to try to hang on to those cattle. They had so much trouble getting them straightened out in the first place. You know, any space in a growing yard is going to be at a premium. There's no forage to turn those cattle out on now. Pretty much everything is gone, and so you get a lot of those cattle being put on any available pen space. And that's another thing, there's no pen space anywhere. Your feedlots are slam full because of all the fall sales of your giant spring calf crop, and so there's no place to put those cattle in the feedlot. Your feedlots are not looking for any cattle that are ready to go right on feed, and there's no other place to go with them. You got a lot of displaced cattle behind them. You've got a big drop off for hedgers looking down the line after they get beyond April, and it's just a wreck. And you know, you talk about a market, and I am going to say this 1,000 times: I would never pick on a market for having a bad sale. I've been in the auction sale barn business myself. Been around it my whole life. There's nothing worse than a bad sale. There's nothing better than a good sale. But I would never talk bad about a sale, especially the granddaddy of them all, the biggest in the nation, OKC West in El Reno, Oklahoma. There is not a facility that has better management. They sell their calves one day and their feeders the next. And it's not just a weight thing. They bring the calves one day, they bring the yearlings the next. There's a weight overlap, but they do not overlap calves and yearlings. They sort the heifers and the steers off. They build a market, and they get a fire built, and they stoke that fire and keep it going. The management could be no better. The facilities could be no better. They got plenty of buying power. Yeah, they may not have seats full of bib overalls and seed corn caps with free corn sitting in the bins and in the last 3 trucks that they brought in from the field, but that's just logistics. That's just not where they're sitting. But I'm going to talk about a sharply lower market, and it's at OKC West, and it is not their fault. A place that hadn't seen that yet, they're going to get it. There's plenty of buying power there, plenty of quality there. Management was good, facilities good. Like I said, everything's good. That's just the best test of the market anywhere in the nation, anywhere in the world. But those feeders were sharply lower. Market News called feeder cattle in El Reno $10 to $15 lower on the feeder steers, feeder heifers $2 to $4 lower in a lighter test. But you look at your report that come out of Cattle Market Central, and it does not lie. But you look at those popular weights, and mind you, this is just the Wednesday feeder sale, not the calf sale. They called the calves sharply lower too, but didn't really have a good comparison because of the light run right after the holiday. But you look at the feeder weights there on Wednesday sale on Cattle Market Central. On your 7 weight, 707 head, average 753 at 136.38. Those cattle were bringing way up in the 40s. Just a week or so ago. Some of them still are in the northern plains, but it's coming, guys. Over 1,000 of them weighed in the 8 weight group at average of 831. They bring 135.57, and all those feeder weight steers there are straight up $12 to $14 lower. That is a chunk. I tell you, 20 years ago, if the market moved 50 cents to a buck one way or the other, it was a big move. And this thing is just so volatile anymore. It's just a wreck or a bonanza waiting to happen. But these cash feeders are sharply lower, guys. But you look at some markets that are still kind of reaping what we've seen here earlier in the start of the new year. And like I said, bib overalls and seed corn caps. Bassett, Nebraska. 4 o'clock on Wednesday afternoon, 90 head of 614-pound steers bring 175. Now that's sand hill type quality too, there in good condition. But you look at a market way out west there, a stone's throw from Utah on the wrong side of the Rocky Mountains, and not a lot of commercial feedlot action going on around there. But Western Slope Cattlemen's Livestock in Loma, Colorado, a first-class facility there, and Bill Martin runs a really nice sale barn there. And they sold some cattle awfully high for the way things were on Wednesday. 4 o'clock Wednesday, sold 64 head of steers, weighed 766 pounds at 149 1/4. That's your feeder flash for Thursday.